Welcome to class 13 for English 3E. This is Jillian Percy, and here are all the ways to reach me. I'm in the studio right now, and you can call at 1-800-465-7144. The WASA office number is 1-800-667-3703. Don't leave a message because my phone system is still set up for the previous occupant. You can fax your work to 1-800-463-7852. You can email your work to me at jillian.percy@nnecschools.org. If you want to re-listen to anything, you can go to YouTube, capital G, capital P, ERCY, space, capital W, AHSA. All right, so yesterday we talked about prefixes, which come at the beginning of a word and change its meaning. Today we're going to talk about suffixes, which come at the end of a base word, and they can change or modify the meaning as well. Some of them we see so often, we don't even realize they're a suffix. For example, when we see a noun with an S or an ES, we just know that it means the noun is plural. The S or the ES are just a type of suffix. Some other really common suffixes we see for verbs are ed. When you see that at the end of a regular verb, it means the verb happened in the past. So for example, yesterday we walked to the store. That means it happened in the past. When we add ing to the end of a regular verb, it means the verb is happening continuously and sometimes currently, like right at that moment. We are walking to the store right now. Do you want to come? She has been swimming every day. So those are really common suffixes we use so often. Knowing the common suffixes can help you figure out new or unfamiliar words. So for example, most of us use about 20,000 words actively, and we often recognize about 40,000 more words that we don't necessarily use ourselves. This is all according to dictionary expert Susie Dent. However, there are a lot more words in the English language. The second edition of the 20-volume Oxford English Dictionary contains full entries for 171,476 words that are in current use, plus 47,156 obsolete words, words that people no longer really use, but you might see in some older books like Shakespeare and stuff. That's over 200,000 words in the language. So no matter what, we're always encountering new words in books, or when doctors are talking to us, or we start a new job and there's a bunch of information, or new machinery comes out. Whatever happens, we're always getting new words. So knowing what suffixes mean is just one tool to help you puzzle out the meaning of new words. And let me see. Okay, so I came across this site and I thought this was kind of a really interesting one. It was kind of specifically geared for people who are learning English as a second language. Sorry for the ads there. But I thought they explained things really, really well here. So if you see able at the end of a sentence, it means they're capable. So adaptable, and it kind of stays, it sounds like able by itself, becomes more like able when it's in a word. Capable of adapting. Noticeable, capable of being noticed. Airy means it's like it's relating to. Solitary is relating to solitude. Disciplinary, relating to discipline. Means more. So bigger is more big, taller is more tall. Est is the most. It's the highest, right? The smallest, the cutest. It's the most extreme, basically. Full is full of, like careful, wonderful. Able is also like capable, credible, terrible. Ick is relating to. Poetic relates to poetry. Photographic relates to photography. It's basically turning, in some senses, a noun into an adjective. Ish is like it's got a characteristic or a quality of that type. So childish has the characteristic of a child. Softish has some characteristics of being soft. Less means without. So meaningless without any meaning. Careless without any care. Like it shares some similarities too. If something is like lifelike, it shares some similarities with being alive. Childlike has some similarities to being like a child. Us, O-U-S, is like having the qualities of. Cautious, having the qualities of being caution. Generous, having the qualities of generosity. And you can see the words are slightly different, but it still has the same base. It's just changed it, again, from noun to essentially an adjective. The Y is it's made up by or it's characterized by. So it's fruity, it's sticky, it's foggy. There are different suffixes for nouns. Age or age, like passage, is the action of passing through. Marriage is the action or the process of getting married. Al, is the act. Refusal, the act of refusing. Denial, the act or process of denying. Ant is a person, so a servant, an assistant. Crassy means power or rule. A democracy, an aristocracy, a meritocracy. Dumb is a place, not dumb like as in how smart you are, dumb as in a place, like a kingdom. Boredom, like a state or a place of being. Freedom, the state of being free. When it's added to a noun, doesn't mean more, it means a person. Carpenter, teacher, waiter, server. ESS usually means a female, like a lioness, an actress, a waitress. ETT, ETTE is smaller, like a kitchenette is like a small kitchen. A cigarette is like a small cigar. Kind of forget that that's what it came from. Hood is the state of, like motherhood, childhood. ION, usually that would be like TION, but it's the action of celebrating for a celebration. Completion, the action of completing or having completed. Ism is a belief. Communism, theism, deism. Ity, having the quality of an activity, is having the quality of being active. Simplicity has the quality of being simple. Log is a speech, a dialogue, a monologue. Meant is action or the result of. An enchantment is the result of enchanting. An argument is the action of arguing. Movement is the action of moving. Ness is a state of being. Sickness, gentleness, kindness. They're states of being the root word, right? Or is another person word. It can be male, but it can be either one. So an actor, narrator, a doctor. Ship. Ship is like a position. Like a citizenship is the position of being a citizen. Friendship, the position of being friends. Hardship, difficult. Oops. TH added to the end adds a quality, like the quality of deep is depth. The quality of being warm is warmth. And your is a condition, failure, the condition of having failed, closure. Some suffixes for verbs besides the ones we already talked about. Is or is to become. To civilize is to become civil. Humanize is to become human. Socialize, to become social. En at the end is also a type of becoming. Soften, loosen, frozen, right? Ify is to make or to become. Simplify, solidify. So it seems odd that you would have three different endings. But again, one of the reasons we talked about yesterday is because English borrows from different languages. It borrows from Greek, it borrows from Latin. So because of that, sometimes we have more than one prefix or suffix that means the same thing because they're borrowed from a different language. Suffix for adverbs, if you add ward to the end of a suffix, it implies direction, like toward or backward. We're going to do a couple more and then we'll take a break here. Ac at the end. Cardiac is related to the heart. Maniac is related to mania. Mania is like a hyperstate. An is relating to or belonging to an American, a Canadian, a mathematician, right? It's often also kind of turning it from I can't know. I'm wrong. I was gonna say something there and it's wrong. I'm gonna let myself go there. Cycle or ear can come at the end of a noun or a verb, like bicycle, recycle, or a volunteer, an engineer becomes a person, right? Oh, and last one here is wise, goes direction, clockwise, lengthwise, widthwise. It's talking about what direction to go into. All right, so back to our assignment chart. Yesterday, we tackled all of the stuff in class 12. I'm just realizing I don't think we looked at all of this, but anyways, for today, we have how to write a resume. We're actually going to cover how to write a covering letter as well. You need to read page 89 to 90, which is Rajiv Singh. And there's an example of his covering letter and resume there. Assignment number 13 is 25 marks overall, which usually means there's a rough and a good. Yeah, rough, 10 for the rough copy and 15 for the final copy. And then number 14 is another 25 marks. So 10 for rough and 15 for final copy. So we're going to go over that. We are getting near the end of the unit, and today is kind of our job focus day. Okay. So number 13 is using one of the sample resumes found on pages 79 to 81 in your book called Making It Work, or on page 90 of the Road Ahead, or there's also one that we provided at the end of this unit. You are to make your own resume. Once you decide which sample you want to use for your resume, you are to draft a rough copy of it and then using a computer produce a final neat copy. You are to submit both the rough copy and the final copy of your resume for marking. I wanted to point this out. This is so, so important. I went to do some marking the other day and I had several people who had not given me a rough copy. The thing is, most times the rough copy is worth like half your marks. If you don't submit the rough copy, then you don't have any marks. It's just not enough to get you through the assignment, right? If 10 marks is for the rough and 10 marks is for the good, unless your final copy is perfect, which would only give you a D, it's just not going to be enough to pass the assignment. So you've got to submit the rough copy, please, please, please. Perhaps you've already got a resume from an earlier course, or you already have one because you've been looking for jobs. That's totally fine. You can submit that as your kind of like your rough copy and then do some revisions of it based on what we talked about to meet the requirements of the assignment. Now, I'm aware that maybe you're perfectly happy with your resume and you don't want to do any revisions. That's fine, but it's an English course. You're going to have to do some. You can still use the original if you decide you like it better after the revisions. That's fine. Okay. So on page 76 to 81, it talks about how to write a resume. I have to say, I thought they really discussed this very bare bones. So if you don't feel like you were 100% ready after you read this, there's all sorts of stuff on the net about how to write resumes. But here's what they give us. A resume is meant to be a short, well-organized summary of your work, experience, your skills, and your education. There are at least 3 typical styles of resumes. There's the chronological, which is based on time, functional, which is about skills, and combination, which tries to combine the best of both of them. You can see pages 79 to 81 for examples. Key to good resumes is to present the information clearly, be concise, which is like short and kind of efficient in your descriptions, and make it easy to read. They suggest that the ideal resume is no more than 2 pages. My husband worked in human resources, and I have to be honest with you, keep it to 1 page. That's really all he ever looked at because they just don't have enough time. If they get 50 applications for one job, they just look at the top part. So you want to make sure that first page or the top of your first page has got all the important stuff. Don't save all your great stuff for the bottom. The resume should include your full name, your address, your phone number, your email address, and they keep saying about fax numbers. I don't think people have fax numbers much anymore, but if you have one, include it. Think about, do you already have a resume? And if so, how did you organize it? What kinds of information have you included in your resume or seen included by other people? And you need to take into account the different types of jobs that may affect what style of resume you write. You also will need to take into account how much experience you have. If you're a student in high school, nobody's expecting to see a whole bunch of work experience. In that case, you might include things like your volunteer experiences that you've done, right? However, if you've been in the field for 20 years, people want to see all the experiences. All right. Chronological resume. The work experience is listed in the order of the date. Education is more likely to be placed at the bottom. This is best suited for those with lots of work experience, and the skills are listed underneath each job title they were done by. So here's an example of one I grabbed from this particular website in case you're looking for stuff. They were very helpful, by the way. Loom, they were lovely. Up here, there's a professional summary. I have to be honest, I personally don't like that, but I'm not a I'm not a human resources professional. I would check and see. It used to be what they called an objective. This is one way to do it. I feel like it wouldn't be harmed to not have that, but that's just me. Work history. Up here, you can see it. It usually goes in order from what's happening right now if you're still working, or what's your most current, and they walk it back. It should be at least 5 years if you've been working for 5 years. If you've been working for a while, you're going to have to kind of decide where to cut things off. So like when I was applying to be a teacher, I've got enough work experience that anything before being a teacher, I just don't bother including anymore, right? Because it's not really relevant. Let me think here. And then at the bottom, they've got specific skills they have. Now, I want to point out, sometimes people put things like, I'm organized. Well, yeah, everyone's going to say that, but here, this person's really specific, right? I know how to do wound care. I know how to do family planning services, right? If you had any specific trainings or certificates, this might be a place to put them. Here, she's got her specific education, and this is certifications in terms of for certain jobs, you need to have like a kind of license. And this is just your proof that you have a license, like teaching, pharmacy, nursing. You have to be licensed or you don't have the job, right? So that's what they're concluding there. Functional. Now, I am sorry, I meant to get a picture of this, but my phone went dead. The functional resume they included in the textbook is so bad. I'm going to be honest and say, I think that they picked a really terrible example of a functional resume. Please, please, please do not hand in anything that looks like what they showed you in the textbook. It is dreadful. It looks either like you're really confused and don't know how to write a resume, or like you're deliberately trying to be dishonest. If you check in the textbook, you'll see what I mean. I'm not the only one that had some discomfort. I noticed this on a website called JobScan, and they said specifically, why recruiters dislike the functional resume. We talked with a recruiter, and this is what they said. Recruiters hate the functional resume format because it's a waste of time. Recruiters dislike functional resumes for two main reasons. One, it conceals information, and that's actually partly deliberately what it's trying to do. You're taking the information out of context in a functional resume. It's easier to BS your way through to making things sound glamorous. The functional resume format raises suspicion among recruiters, and this is because some job applicants may use it to cover gaps in their employment, bloat their skills, hide their lack of experience. This is easy to do because the main focus of a functional resume is on skills rather than career history. I want to point out they're kind of avoiding the fact that the whole reason the functional resume was invented was precisely to accomplish those goals. Right? I forget the guy that wrote. There was a really, really popular resume writing book, and this was his big thing. And it was precisely because not everybody has perfect employment history. Not everybody has perfect skills. So this is what he kind of invented. Done right, it can be quite nice. Done poorly, it, like I said, it just looks dishonest. Sometimes you have to be kind of careful of that. So oh, here is a nicer example of a functional resume. It kind of works here because the job seeker has some really specific skills. Like he's mentioning knowing very specific programming languages, database languages. Like the only one that's kind of vague is excellent written and verbal communication. A lot of the other stuff is really specific. So even if he didn't have a lot of experience using these on a job, the fact that he understood how to use those might be really helpful for certain kinds of jobs. Okay. His actual work experience is really minimal. Basically, he worked as a freelance software developer for like essentially about a year or so. I'm assuming that this is the resume of somebody who just graduated. And for somebody who just graduated, that's fine, right? Where it would get sketchy was if you'd been in the field for 20 years and this is what you handed in, that would raise a lot of eyebrows. People would wonder what was going on. The other time that this might work, though, is if you've just switched careers, right? I know some people who you know, started off in one career, say they were nursing and they decide they don't want to do nursing anymore. Now they want to do teaching. Well, all the experience they have nursing isn't going to make a whole lot of sense on a teaching resume. So in that case, they might use something more like this because they are going to want to emphasize all their teaching experience rather than just do a chronological work history where it's obvious that they've just done nursing for the last 20 years. So it's there. It's really only meant to be used in specific kind of circumstances, though. So be careful with it. Combination resume. A combination resume is organized both chronologically and by categories. It usually includes skills acquired. It might be a good choice for those who've had some experience, but not too much work experience. Also, I think it might be good if you've had some very specific training that an employer might be looking for. Like if you've had heavy machinery training, that's a real specialty. Even if you haven't had a job that used it yet, you might want to use that and make sure people know that you've got it. If you've got a certification to do some specific kind of software applications, this is where a combination resume can kind of help some of those skills stand out, even if you haven't had a chance to use some of those skills in a job yet. This is from a site called Job Hero. This is what they called the hybrid or the combination resume format. I would not put the pink here. Any women out there? Unless I was going for something like in cosmetology, I think it looks a little too feminine for the work field, but that's just me. Up here, you've got your name and your contact information. Here's your professional summary. Here's some of the big skills she's got. There's her work history. There's some of her professional skills. And you can see in the professional skills, she's listed some specific programs like Social Table. That's a specific program. Wedding Wire, MS Office. And then there's kind of softer skills like detail oriented. She's got her education here and any certifications. I like the format here where she's got kind of like a 2-column thing because you get all of that information onto one page. And I just think it's a very effective way to do it. So this is one example of a hybrid resume format. I think it's a really great way to go for lots of people. They said, this was on the same site, they felt that it was good if you had between 3 to 9 years of experience, if you're applying for a promotion from the job you currently hold, if you're changing industries or careers, if you're trying to draw attention away from gaps in your employment, and interestingly, if you're transferring from a military to a civilian job. I was thinking as well, I know some of our friends have some custody issues. If you're in a custody situation, you might be doing a job in that situation that still gives you work experience that would look good on a resume. And you just need to find a way to kind of specify those skills while kind of maybe downplaying where those skills came from. A hybrid combination format might work really good with that. Anyways, this is from Job Hero. Again, these guys had some great stuff. It's another great place to look for if you were looking for career stuff. This is the one we included. This is a very typical resume, personal information up top, objective. That was what I was taught. I don't think it's always necessary. It's a little bit different than what they've got where they're doing what they call the professional summary. And that may be, that can be a time thing in terms of there are different styles. It may be one of those things that objective used to be the style and now professional summary is more common. I would take a look around, okay? Education right here, work experience, skills, interests. This is a really bare bones resume, by the way. I would definitely want to beef it up if it was me. And then the reference section. I wanted to make one really strong point. If you are a mature student who's had some great work experience, don't put your education ahead of your work experience. Put the work experience right up top because this person's got some nice work experience, right? So put that up top. Let that be the first thing they see. They don't need to see that you're still working on your high school. Put that down where it's not going to be so noticeable, right? If you're hiring for a job in customer service, the first thing you want them to see is, hey, I've already done this kind of job. I would also say the skills, I would want it to be very specific. Like, I'm able to use this specific software database, like, or I'm good at using Microsoft Excel. I'm comfortable using this type of cash system. I would not be this vague. If you're going to be vague like that, I would save that for your cover letter. That's just me personally. So for example, excellent at using MS Word to create a variety of documents such as letters, agendas, programs, posters, and business documents, right? That's kind of useful because if they already use MS Word, they don't want to have to do a bunch of training if they don't have to. If someone comes in and already knows how to use it, great. That saves them a bunch of time. So I would save the skills for specific things. I would not save it for vague things like that. The other thing I wanted to point out, as somebody who's been around for a while, a lot of the resumes I saw in the textbooks, they have an outdated look to them. They're all using that kind of Times New Roman font, which was really common and was everywhere for a while. I think it looks outdated. I would choose a different font. I also think that the layout that they've got, that full page layout, is a somewhat outdated layout and is not as common today. So I would really spend a bit of time looking on some of those resume sites to get a sense of what's more current, because I really didn't think that the examples they showed really reflect what resumes are meant to look like now. Having said that, I've seen so many resumes that have photos. I don't know if that's appropriate in the States, but in Canada, that is really considered inappropriate. Do not put your photo on the resume unless you're like trying to get a job in like modeling or acting. It's really considered inappropriate in many businesses, and it could result in them automatically rejecting your application. And the reason is because automatically they know what you look like, they know your gender, they know your race, they know your age, they know so many things that they could get in trouble for if they chose not to hire you, right? Because you could say, well, they didn't hire me because I was a woman, or they didn't hire me because I was older, or whatever. So just leave your photo out. Do not put that in there, okay? I would also be cautious of bold, fancy colors on your resume unless you are physically handing them that resume. A lot of times resumes get photocopied. If you're sending it digitally, they may print it in black and gray, and all that fancy color may not show, and it may not look nearly as good without the fancy color. So you want to make sure it looks good without any color at all. I would also be cautious of printing it on any kind of fancy paper. Generally, when people are doing this, it's because they don't trust their training or their experiences. Now, if you want to buy nice white paper, that's one thing. But if you're getting like, fancy, creamy, parchmenty things that you might see in a wedding, it sets off warning bells for most interviewers. I also would not put skills or interest in a resume unless they somehow tied into the work I was trying to do. So let's say I was trying to get work at a sports equipment store. Well, then I might put that I've got interest in hockey, baseball, and rollerblading, even though I've not have any job experience with them, because that relates. I obviously, if I'm in hockey, I'm going to have a better idea of how all the hockey equipment works and what's good and what's not good. But I wouldn't put down my interest if I was applying to a sports equipment store and my interests were actually building Lego sets in watercolor, because it's not related to the job. So don't put the interest down just to have it down. I don't think it's as common anymore as it used to be. And you're allowed to be selective. You can put down the interests that relate to the job. You don't have to put down every single interest you've ever had. Okay. Okay, so I did want to show you this because, again, I know we used Canva. This was the course, right? We used Canva for the brochures. I also really liked some of their resumes. So kind of wanted to show you this is the URL, but I actually kind of already pulled it up. And I told it I wanted to see resumes, and it pulled up all sorts of resumes. Now here you can see they've got these crazy pictures. I don't know why they do that. Maybe that's considered okay in the States or wherever. I don't do the picture. I just don't do the picture. So you can see, I'm just going to pull one up here. Oh, I don't want to customize. I just want to take a look at it. Well, let me do that. No. All right. It keeps wanting me to do things. Hang on a second. Let's see. Ah, all right. There is a way to do this, but it's giving me a bit. Oh, that's why. It's because I'm not logged in. I don't think so. Hang on. Let me see if it'll let me. Okay. So if I go to picking a blank resume, it gives me all the examples on the side. Now they're kind of hard to see now, but let me just kind of grab one just to give you an example. Apply all 3 pages. Well, I would not hand in 3 pages. But anyways, it gives you kind of a setup. Right here, it's giving you the second column setup. You could easily just go in and take out their information, put yours in. Here's the profile, work experience, job position. If you've done a lot of different jobs, if you've been in the field for a long time, this might be appropriate. Oh, they've included a little cover letter too. That's what the third page is for. Okay. Let's say I wanted something slightly more. Now, again, if it's got the little crown, that means it's a paid one, so you can't pull it up. You could look at it for ideas, though. Here's one. 3 pages. Oh, wait. Is that what I had before? I feel like that's different than what I had. Okay, I'm going to pull up the pink one on purpose to see if okay, it does. All right. And again, I probably wouldn't use the pink, but it's really nice. It's got spot for the education. It's got some spot for her skills. I would again go with harder skills, but that's okay. It's got her experience. What does page 2 look like? Oh, they left it as the other one. That's fine. But it has some fun little fonts. It's kind of nice. This is just a great little site that you can play around with. Again, especially if you're doing this resume that you really are going to use it afterwards, take the time to make it look really nice. It's worth it. And somebody just looking at a nice, clean, well-designed resume like that, it's kind of selling itself before you even get a chance to read what you know how to do, right? All right. That was one thing. Google Docs. Google Docs, everybody has, we've all got it. Let me just see. Okay, I'm going to go back for a second. All right. So I could just grab any letter. So here's where I would put my address. Here's where I put the address of who I was sending it to. They didn't really give us any information. It's just kind of that, what they call that, I forget what they call it, but that blank text that they use for everything. Okay. The nice thing with the templates here, pull up an example. Hang on a second. It does give you some actual ideas of how to phrase things, which I thought was kind of useful. Let's see if John. See if I can make it bigger to kind of show you what I mean. Oh, this one didn't. Oh, some of them were really, really detailed, and I thought, wow, it's really helpful to have some ideas on how to phrase things. Okay, so it does give you the format, though. That's one way to do things as well. Oh, but we were talking about resumes. Hang on, I apologize, because we're covering both resumes and cover letters here. Does it let me do resumes, template gallery, letters? Oh, here's resumes. All right. Already all set up, and you would just put your information in. The nice thing about this is they've got the little lines there. They've got the bolded stuff. They've got the little headlines there. These look really nice. They're a great way to get started, so you don't have to do all the setup yourself. Okay, so then moving ahead to what we were talking about next, which is there's a sample covering letter on page 87 in Making It Work. There's another one on page 89 in The Road Ahead. And there's also one provided at the end of this unit on Appendix B. They want you to write a cover letter You have to choose one of these two positions that you're applying to. So the first one is Rona. I don't know if you have Rona's here. Rona is kind of like a home building store. They would have a little bit like home hardware, but usually bigger, all sorts of lumber. They would sell sinks, toilets, drapes. If you're doing any kind of building a deck, they're who you would talk to. So their ad says, Rona Sioux Lookout is looking for mature, energetic, and organized individuals to fill the following positions: junior project estimator, senior project estimator, civil technologist, yard manager or supervisor, and a customer service representative. Now, if you're sending a cover letter, you have to pick one of those. You can't apply to all of them. They're very different jobs. A customer service representative is going to be somebody who does cash or helps people on the floor. That's very different than a senior project estimator, who is probably going to be somebody who gets like a phone call when, you know, the school wants to build an entire addition and wants a quote, kind of thing. Those are different jobs. So you're going to have to specify which job you're applying to. Please forward your resume along with a cover letter and 3 references before this date. And here's your address. It doesn't tell you, who to send it to. So then you would just say, Dear Sir or Madame, or to whom it may concern. Over here, the second job is a reporter for Sioux Lookout Bulletin. It says, would you like to cover sled dog races, visit a gold exploration camp, take part in Aboriginal games, as well as interact with and report on some of the Ontario North's warmest and most exciting people? The Bulletin, a respected weekly community newspaper, has an immediate opening for an enthusiastic and mature reporter and photographer who will welcome working on a wide variety of assignments. Sioux Lookout is a lively, multicultural community of 5,500 people located 60 kilometers north of the Trans-Canada Highway, midway between Thunder Bay and Winnipeg. The starting salary will be between $23,000 to $25,000 range, depending on ability and experience. A reporter with a car is preferred, but we will supply the digital camera. Interested candidates, please send cover letter, resume, and 2 writing samples. And they tell you who to send it to and what the address is. Obviously, you don't actually have to provide the writing samples, okay, guys? So you have the choice of which one you want to apply to. So in Making It Work, it talks about how to write a cover letter. A cover letter goes along with your resume. It kind of like introduces your resume. It's usually a lot shorter. It's much more informal. And you can really kind of target specific things. It tells the employer about qualities you have. It also is important to include stuff that might not appear in your resume. Like, let's say you spent the entire summer rebuilding your deck and putting in an in-ground pool. And that's not work experience, so it wouldn't probably go on your resume, but you could totally mention it in your covering letter if you're applying to a home hardware, because it shows that you have some ability, you use tools, you know how to do some of these things. So a cover letter is a great way to talk about information that might not show up on your resume, okay? It is your chance to give a good impression and let them know that you are the best person for the job. You can do the job, you want the job, and you have special skills that make you good for the job. Hang on. So, steps to writing the cover letter. Decide what information needs to go in your letter. Maybe you're answering a job ad, or maybe you're just submitting a resume to a place where you want to work. If you're answering a job ad, read the ad carefully. Look for words that show what they're looking for. Make a list of those skills or attributes, and then make notes on how your work experience or volunteer work or even your schooling might demonstrate those skills. If you're applying for a job where there was no advertisement, like let's say there's a factory in town or whatever, and they don't necessarily advertise their openings, but they do take resumes. Think about what kinds of skills or experiences most employers want or that employer might want, and what kind of skills you might be expected to have at any job you're applying to. So, for example, if you're applying for a cashier's job, well, you probably should have some cashier experience. You should be good with customer service and maybe familiar with the product, right? If you're applying for a cashier at a hobby store, it'd be great if you did some of the hobbies. If you're applying for being a cashier at a car store, it would be useful if you knew some stuff about cars. Most employers are looking for a strong work ethic. You could show that by excellent attendance at school, willingness to work overtime, being involved in volunteer activities that you show responsibility for, or like show that you were willing to work hard. Like let's say you do extra work for Habitat for Humanity. Well, oh, now all of a sudden you've got experience doing building, and it shows that in your free time you still work hard. That shows that you're not somebody who's lazy or is going to sit around and do nothing, right? That's a great thing to put on a cover letter. Step 2, look at your information and decide what order you want to present it in the letter. This is a typical outline. First, you normally start off with where you saw the ad or why you're interested in working for the company. Then you would demonstrate with examples from work, school, or volunteer experiences how you have the necessary skills, qualifications, or attitudes to do well at this job. That might be 1 or 2 paragraphs, maybe 3 tiny ones. You don't want your cover letter to be too long. You want it short and sweet. Possibly a brief statement that summarizes your fit for the position. Usually it's like a recap of the skills, qualifications, and attitudes. Finally, you would tell the employer how, where, and when to reach you to meet for an interview. This is crucial. If you give them your phone number, it has to be a working phone number. If you don't have minutes on your phone, you need to put the minutes on and keep them high the entire time you are looking for work. There is nothing that will kill your chances of getting an interview quicker than them calling a phone and nobody ever answers, right? Write your first draft. Check the ad and see how they want to receive any applications. These days, there are all sorts of possibilities. Maybe they want you to drop it off in person. Maybe they want you to submit it by email. Maybe there's a digital application on the company website. Maybe they want you to come in and fill out a paper application. Or it could be 2 of those. Sometimes they might want you to drop things off in person, and while you're there, they want you to fill out a specific application that has information they're looking for. So check it out. It usually will say in the ad. If not, call them and just ask them. It's totally acceptable to do that. Step 4, prepare your final draft. You can use the model that they show you on page 87. You can also use any of the models that we're seeing on like Google Docs or Canva. Those are all totally acceptable, okay? It should, however, include your name, your address, phone numbers. Include your cell and include a landline if you have one. Your email address. They keep putting fax number. I don't think it's very common these days for people to have fax numbers. Businesses do, but people don't normally. But if you do, by all means, include it. The letter should also include the company's name and address and the name of who you are sending the letter to. This might be a hiring manager, a human resource assistant, maybe it's a supervisor, or it can be the owner themselves, depending on what kind of job you're looking at. Often the ad will explicitly say who to send it to. If they don't say, just write, "Dear Sir or Madam," or "To whom it may concern." That is totally acceptable. People are used to seeing it. But don't do that if they said, send it to Laura Smith. Make sure that you then address it to Laura Smith. Make sure you spell check and grammar check your cover letter. I know it seems like it shouldn't matter, especially if you're applying for a job as a cashier. Does it really matter if you misspelled the word occasional in your thing? It probably doesn't, but you know what? People still will notice it, and you want them to not have that. You want them to notice only the good things, right? So spell check things. Some tips for cover letter writing. Single space the cover letter, but leave a space between paragraphs. Do not use the same cover letter for every job. You can leave your resume the same, but change the cover letter. Change the details to match the job description for each position you apply for. Now, I'm going to say one exception. Let's say you are at the mall and you are just desperately looking for a cashier position and you're like hitting every store in the mall. Okay, that's fine, right? if you're young and it's a new job and you haven't got a lot of experience, that might be acceptable. But you wouldn't want to use the same cover letter for cashier at this place, stock person at this other place, waitress at the other place, because they all use different skills. So you're not going to have the same cover letter for all of us because you're going to emphasize different types of skills you have to match the job you're looking for. Don't include a photo, just like with the resume. Don't. It's a surefire way to kill that that resume or that cover letter because it gives off the impression that you're trying to get hired by your looks. Okay. If your phone might go to a message box, message receiver, whatever, make sure the message sounds professional. Cover letters are especially important when applying for entry-level jobs. I think they're important no matter what, but that's what they said, so I'm adding that. They are also important when you have to fill out an application rather than giving them a resume. I agree with that because the applications are designed to sort of really highlight information that they're looking for. It kind of puts everything in their hands. If you put a cover letter out there and it's friendly, it's chatty, comes off really warm, it just is an added bonus, especially if not everybody does it. So if 10 people hand in an application and you and only one other person hand in a cover letter, you guys are probably going to be the first people called, right? Google Docs has some cover letter templates. We did look at that. They are pretty basic, but they do give you a nice clean layout and they do all the formatting that you might need. They don't necessarily give you ideas of what to say. They just kind of set up the format. Canva also has cover letter templates. I put an example here. Here's what I was talking about before, where they kind of put words there for you, which I think is really helpful. So this one says, I am writing to express my keen interest in the high school educator position advertised on Fradel and Spins Academy's website. I believe I possess the necessary qualifications and experience to make a valuable contribution to your teaching team. You could say all that and just, to your cashier team, to your restaurant team, to your warehouse team, you could just change things slightly to make it fit your experience. Okay. So I highly, highly, highly recommend, right? See up here, I could say job cover pages. Now they do have all kinds of cover pages, right? Not just for jobs. Here's an example. Okay. Oh, see, and here's another one where they included very specific types of information, right? If you did any kind of web developing, this would be a great one to give you some examples of how to do this. So again, it's just a great spot to get some information. This is the one from the book. It's also perfectly acceptable. Up top, you're putting your address. Here is who you're applying to, the home hardware. I would not put Ms. I would not put a question mark there. I would just not put that. I would just take out the Mr. and Mrs., just put attention manager. Yeah, it would be the actual person's name. The Mr. Ms. thing, I feel like when I was first working, it would be absolutely 100% expected to say Mr. or Ms. I feel like we're moving away from that a lot now, and it might be more acceptable to say like the person's first name and last name, right? Like Jack Harris, Susanna Johnson, without necessarily including the Ms. or the Mr. It used to be that would have been considered really offensive, but I think we're really moving away from that now. I think you'd be fine getting rid of that as long as you see their name. If they're signing everything Mr. Smith, then obviously that's how you send it to them, okay? Here's their sample. I would like to be considered for the position of customer service representative at your store as advertised. At present, I am a student with WASA Distance Education Center and will graduate soon with my OSSD. I would tell when. If you're going to graduate in January, make that clear. If you're about to graduate in June, make that clear. One course I'm taking this term is English 3, which focuses on communication skills for the workplace. I now feel confident that I can be an effective team player at your store and that I can handle the duties of customer service representative. I worked in customer service part-time last year at the Northern store in Pickle Lake. Just, I didn't write this. I am an honest and hardworking person and also friendly and outgoing. I have good oral and organizational skills as required for this position, and I have a little knowledge of building materials. I'm willing to learn as much as possible in order to do my work successfully. So I am hoping that you will give me an opportunity in this position. I can be reached at any time for an interview at 928-1234. Now, if you're already working part-time, it's totally okay to say, I am currently working as whatever, and I can be reached after 4 or between this time. That's fine, right? Most people are aware these days that a lot of us already have one job. Maybe we're working 2 part-time jobs. Maybe you're working at one job and you're looking for a job that pays better. There are not enough people working right now. With everything that's happened with COVID, we are really short for workers all over the place. I really don't think that's going to bother anybody. I also really liked that they said the part about, I'm hoping you'll give me an opportunity for this position. Okay. It's just kind of that last minute reselling yourself for the job. That's a great way to do it. I also would say you don't have to say that you're a high school student. If you are under 19, totally makes sense. If you are a mature student, I really wouldn't mention it unless they mention it in your ad, right? I would just mention whatever work experience you have that applies to that job. I just would not mention high school at all. If they want to know about it, they can ask, right? They don't have to, and a lot of people won't care. If you know how to work cash, great. Doesn't matter if you finished high school. If you are an awesome waitress, again, doesn't necessarily matter. So I would not mention it in the cover letter unless for some reason they mention it in the job ad. And they might. Sometimes they'll say qualifications are you have to have your high school. And then you could say, well, I'm applying now and in 2 months I'm graduating. Then it would be important to mention it because they did first. All right, I went a little bit over time today. There was so much to talk about. I really hope you found this helpful. I look forward to seeing everybody's cover letters and your resumes. And we have one more lesson this week, and then we are finished Unit 2. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.